Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa arrives at the White House for a high-stakes meeting with President Donald Trump. The two leaders discussing past cooperation and future trade, while also addressing tensions over landowners' safety and rural unrest. An international trade court will hear arguments today over why the Trump tariffs should be stopped. We'll have the latest. Lawmakers worked throughout the night once again trying to move President Trump's big budget bill to the floor. And Speaker Johnson is still working on a tax deal for Republicans from high tax states, one that fiscal hawks might accept. After President Trump's Golden Dome order, China now accusing the U.S. of turning space into a war zone. We speak with a national security expert on the future of anti-nuclear missile systems. A deportation flight to Africa is in the spotlight today. A judge issues a ruling against a flight to South Sudan. How the Trump administration is now responding to the judge's order. And a fifth inmate from last week's New Orleans jailbreak accused of murder has now been captured. The search still continues for the others on the run.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
All right, another testy meeting in the Oval Office today. President Trump's conversation with the South African president began cordially enough, but devolved into an open debate over allegations that white South Africans are being targeted for persecution. We've now got live NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao. Iris, good to see you. Tell us more about what happened during that hour-long meeting.
Good afternoon to you as well, Fiona. So today during the meeting, the two leaders first started talking friendly about trade and golfing in a somewhat lighthearted atmosphere, but then the conversation dwelled into this almost open debate over allegations of mass killings of white South African farmers in that country. And it came with President Trump asking his aides to dim the lights in the Oval Office and show the South African delegation a video footage that showed a party, the Black Party in South Africa, is singing, for example, kill the boer, kill the white farmer, and take their land, plus some footage allegedly showing a burial site with thousands of white farmers killed. The South African leader first laughed, but then was visibly uncomfortable while sitting through it and watching quietly. Watch.
Turn the lights down and just put this on. It's right behind you, Johan.
There's nothing this parliament can do. With or without you, people are going to occupy land. We require no permission from you, from the president.
And the two leaders then got into a back and forth over such allegations of mass genocide. President Trump, holding up printed articles, accuses the South African government of taking away people's lands and, in some occasions, killing them. Meanwhile, the South African leader responded by pushing back against those claims, as saying that what was sung in that video footage was not their official government policy. Watch.
Look. These are articles over the last few days. Death of people. Death. 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 Horrible death. Death. These are people that are officials, and they're saying that kill the white farmer and take their land.
Let me clarify that, because what you saw, the speeches that were being made, one, that is not government policy. Nobody can take land.
And the South African leader further insisted that while South Africa in general has a crime problem, but it affects not only white South Africaners, but also black citizens. And he asked that his agricultural secretary, for example, is a white he brought him in to address such problems. And while the South African government did pass a law allowing the government to take people's lands without compensation, the process is subject to judicial review. And President Trump, when asked by reporters if he actually believes the claims of genocide happening in South Africa, and Trump says that he hasn't made up his mind just yet, but he's trying to save lives no matter where they are. Watch.
I haven't made up my mind. I hate to see it. I'm trying to save lives. I want to save the lives. If it's in Africa, that's great. If it's in Europe, if it's wherever it may be. And it's a very small investment to do, believe me, compared to what the consequences are.
And as you can probably see behind us, there's some motorcade still here waiting outside the West Wing. So it means that the South African delegation has not departed just yet. The two sides went into a closed-door meeting after the open press Oval Office meeting. So it remains to be seen if any final outcome or, for example, remarks or readout will come out from their meetings today, as we saw the two leaders apparently had a debate inside the Oval Office. Back to you.
Iris, thank you. Moving on, a coalition of U.S. states today are asking an international trade court in Manhattan to block President Trump's Liberation Day tariffs. Oregon Attorney General Dan Rayfield announced the lawsuit last month.
These tariffs are unlawful. They're chaotic and harmful to the hardworking families and businesses that make our state thrive. And they are not just numbers on a page. They are real costs in all of our wallets, your workplace, and all of our future.
Rayfield has said the tariffs were raising prices for Oregon families and small businesses. In the lawsuit, the states claim the president misinterpreted a law called the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to justify those tariffs. Now, they're arguing the law is meant to address unusual and extraordinary threats to the U.S. President Trump has said the U.S.'s decades-long history of importing more than it exports is a national emergency that has harmed U.S. manufacturers. But the states argue the U.S. trade deficit is not an emergency. The same three-judge panel hearing arguments today heard arguments last week in a similar case brought by 5 small businesses. The court is expected to issue a decision on that case in the coming weeks. President Trump trying to up U.S. missile defense networks. Yesterday, the president signed the Iron Dome for America executive order. The Department of Defense now has 60 days to evaluate the U.S. missile defense network and overhaul it with hypersonic weapon sensors, space-based missile interceptors, and other so-called non-kinetic missile defense capabilities. China, meanwhile, has now reacted to that order, saying that President Trump is turning space into a war zone. Joining us now to discuss is Robert Peters, Senior Research Fellow for Strategic Deterrence at the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for National Security. Robert, you're actually also specializing in missiles, so I know this is right up your alley for you here. So great having you on today.
Oh, glad to be here.
All right, so before we get into anything too technical, let's talk about this reaction from China here, right? The country is saying the U.S. should immediately stop developing and deploying any of these global anti-missile systems. They're also saying that the U.S. is getting, quote, obsessed with space dominance. But then we saw the Space Force Vice Chief saying that China itself is also rapidly growing its space-based capabilities. And then Space Force Vice Chief of Operations, General Michael Gutlein, he's saying that China has quite literally been practicing dogfighting in space. How do you read this?
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty rich coming from China, saying that the United States are the ones who are weaponizing space. China has been increasingly militarizing space with both sensors, but also space fighting capabilities. And in fact, after it became public knowledge in March of 2024 that Russia was able to put a nuclear weapon into orbit that could have effects in the atmosphere or potentially even on the ground, China refused to support a UN resolution that would condemn Russia putting a nuclear weapon into space. So I have a hard time believing that China is arguing in good faith when it says it's condemning Golden Dome or condemning American defensive capabilities that would go into space, given that they've been reticent to condemn offensive capabilities that itself and Russia are putting into orbit.
Well, I do think, though, that this brings up a question that some people may have, and that's, could developing a system like this drive adversarial nations to invest more in their offensive capabilities?
Well, it's possible, but I would point out the fact that Russia today has 10 times as many tactical nuclear weapons as the United States does, according to the New York Times. And Russia's and China is the fastest growing nuclear power on the planet, and has the world's largest concentration of theater range missiles that can attack American allies and American bases from Japan to Guam to Northern Australia. And so, from my perspective, they're already building missile capabilities and nuclear capabilities as fast as they possibly can. So I'm not really sure what they expect our reaction to be, if not to build credible defenses against these weapons that they themselves are building.
Okay, let's go deeper here into the technology within this order. What makes the president's Golden Dome proposal different from any other similar approaches we've seen in the past?
Yeah, it's a great question. So President Trump mentioned President Reagan 40 years ago. The big difference between what President Trump proposes and what President Reagan tried to build 40 years ago is that the technology has advanced so far in the last 40 years. The computational power that's necessary to find, fix, and engage enemy missiles while they're still flying through the air is so far beyond what even President Reagan could dream of that it's now possible to engage in this mission. And the second piece is it's now relatively cheap to put kilograms into orbit. We've seen the private sector do this in the case of Starlink and SpaceX, in which they can put thousands of satellites into orbit for only a few $1 billion. And really, it was the cost of space lift that made President Reagan's Strategic Defense Initiative implausible 40 plus years ago.
So how viable are these space-based interceptors or these non-kinetic systems like lasers? What kind of developments could we be seeing within the next decade?
Well, from an engineering perspective, it's very possible. I mean, from an engineering perspective, this is a simpler problem set than, say, putting a man on the moon in the 1960s. And so what you could very well see is over the next 3 to 5 years, orbital platforms that are sensors, but also have the ability to put interceptors. So think like tungsten slugs that could come down and intercept a missile before it goes exoatmospheric, before it goes into space. That would be the big innovation that Golden Dome would drive that could fundamentally change how we think about stability with our adversaries in China and Russia.
So I think a really interesting thing that stood out to me when I was reading up on this is the fact that there's these 3 phases, right, at which points these systems could detect and maybe intercept a nuclear missile. There's the boost phase, the mid-course, and the terminal phase. Let's talk about the boost phase, because that really piqued my interest. You know, detecting a missile right at launch and then intercepting it while it's still in its launch phase. How feasible is that?
So in many ways, it's very feasible in the sense that when a missile is still in its boost phase, that's when it's going its slowest. Missiles get really fast when they go exoatmospheric and start coming back down to Earth. That's when they go, tremendous speeds. But if you're able to intercept a missile while it's still in boost phase before it gets to its highest velocity, then you have a much higher chance of intercepting it. Now, the key to this is having a constellation of satellites that are in orbit that can shoot down these missiles, whether they're launched from the interior of Russia or China or North Korea. And so that really requires a large, robust constellation of satellites that really cover most of the planet so that you can have the best chances of intercepting these missiles before they go exoatmospheric.
So what would you say is the biggest implementation challenge when it comes to President Trump's plan here? Is it technical? Is it logistical? Is it political? Or is it a mix?
I mean, what I would say is getting the system up within the next 3.5 years, which President Trump laid out as being his goal yesterday afternoon in his announcement. It's going to be the speed of the DoD bureaucracy, the speed to identify who's going to be the performer, and then testing and evaluating and then getting these systems up in orbit. Really, if the Defense Department is able to cut through the bureaucratic red tape, then we've got a real fighting chance of putting this thing into orbit in the next 3 years.
And to that point there, what role do you expect private companies like Elon Musk's SpaceX playing in the future of U.S. strategic missile defense development?
The only way this is going to work is if there's a partnership between the Pentagon and the private sector. And private companies like SpaceX, but there are others as well, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, whomever it may be, they're going to be critical to ensure that we've got the right engineers that can build the right systems and capabilities to make Golden Dome a reality.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier President Reagan had a similar idea decades ago. He also had the idea of sharing some of this missile defense technology as a sort of trust building measure. Do you think that kind of idea still has any relevance today?
Well, I think that the ability to share this technology with our allies in East Asia and also Europe, in integrating Golden Dome with their own indigenous capabilities, whether those capabilities are in, say, South Korea or Japan or Poland or Romania, that's going to make the efficacy of Golden Dome that much greater. And so if you're able to share launch data and interception capabilities with our key allies, then the chances of successful interception go much, much higher.
Final question for you here. Do you think this could ultimately lead to some sort of a new modern era space race?
I mean, it's possible. I mean, what I'd say is that going back to your earlier question, China's already going down this route, and Russia is as well, as was revealed in March of 2024. In many ways, we're playing catch up to the kinds of capabilities that our adversaries are putting up. And moreover, our adversaries are really looking at capabilities from which they can put weapons onto Earth from space. This is trying to prevent that from happening, and that's why Golden Dome is so important to be built.
All I can say is Star Wars doesn't seem quite so fictional now, but Robert Peters, great having you on today. Thank you.
Thank you.
When we come back, the Trump administration is disputing a court order regarding a deportation flight. 8 individuals have been sent to South Sudan, the legal status of the situation, and what's next in this case. And a 5th inmate from last week's New Orleans jailbreak, who has been accused of murder, is now recaptured. The search continues for the others that are still on the run. We'll be right back.
Hurry in and shop Mathis Home today during the Monumental Savings Event for deals in every department. Get huge discounts on hundreds of sofas in all the latest styles. Come and see the latest looks in bedrooms and dining rooms at the lowest prices ever. You can get it all in stock with fast and free delivery. Even an incredible selection of patio and outdoor furniture so you can enjoy every part of your home. For the best service, selection, and value, don't miss out on the Monumental Savings Event at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
Hi, I'm Susan Lucci. You may know me from my many years on television. I never thought about heart disease until I had my own heart event. I felt this slight pressure in my chest, just slight. I thought, oh, it's nothing, it'll go away. I didn't get it. I did not get it. A few days later, while shopping at a boutique, that pressure returned, much stronger. It felt like an elephant pressing on my chest. I had a 90% blockage in my main artery and a 75% blockage in the adjacent artery. I was rushed into surgery where I received 2 stents in my arteries. Stents developed through research funded by the American Heart Association. Those stents saved my life. That's why I'm in front of you today, asking you to join me in supporting the American Heart Association by becoming a monthly donor. Call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough. Get the next person trained in CPR, the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. I'm so grateful to the American Heart Association. Their research helped save my life. I can enjoy life with my children, my grandchildren, and my friends. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, and your support now can help save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special t-shirt that you can wear to show that you are helping save lives. Please, listen to your heart. The only reason I'm here today is because I did.
Please call or go online to helpheart.org. Become a monthly donor, and for a limited time only, your first month's gift will be matched.
Thank you.
Kids love it. Parents trust it.
Obviously.
Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Ganjion Campus courses led by expert educators.
This is spectacular.
Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more.
Wow.
All while having fun.
Perfect.
Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
Welcome back. The Trump administration is criticizing a new court order blocking a deportation flight. Last night, a judge ruled that authorities cannot deport individuals to South Sudan. Homeland Security is now responding to that decision. Here's NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar.
We conducted a deportation flight from Texas to remove some of the most barbaric, violent individuals illegally in the United States.
A deportation flight to South Sudan is in the spotlight on Wednesday. Homeland Security spokeswoman Tricia McLaughlin confirmed previous reports, saying the Trump administration sent 8 illegal immigrants on a flight to South Sudan.
No country on earth wanted to accept them because their crimes are so uniquely monstrous and barbaric. Every single one of them was convicted of a heinous crime: murder, rape, child rape, rape of a mentally and physically handicapped victim.
On Tuesday night, District Judge Brian Murphy in Boston ruled that the immigrants shouldn't leave the custody of U.S. immigration authorities. According to Murphy, authorities could follow that ruling in various ways. For example, holding the immigrants on the plane in South Sudan. Murphy said, "I'm not going to limit Homeland Security on where they hold them. If they want to turn the plane around, they can." McLaughlin now says she doesn't agree with the ruling.
It is absolutely absurd for a district judge to try to dictate the foreign policy and national security of the United States of America.
Murphy on Tuesday said the deportation flight might violate a previous ruling of his. Murphy had prohibited the deportation of immigrants to countries other than their own if they might face torture or persecution there. McLaughlin now says this when asked about the legality of the deportation flight.
We are following due process under the U.S. Constitution. These individuals have been given, and their lawyers have been given, plenty of prior notice.
Now, McLaughlin didn't confirm whether South Sudan was actually the ultimate destination of these 8 individuals, suggesting it could also just be a stop. And in terms of their nationalities, lawyers for immigrants said that the Trump administration started deporting individuals from Myanmar and from Vietnam to South Sudan. Arian Pazdar, NTD News.
Democrats and Republicans clashed on Capitol Hill yesterday during a heated House hearing. The session focused on charges against a Democratic congresswoman over a recent scuffle outside of a detention center in New Jersey.
So let's be honest. Who exactly are the Democrats fighting for here? This is the part I don't get, because it isn't the American people.
Members of Congress have every right to conduct oversight at ICE facilities and any other federal agency.
The Department of Justice charged Congresswoman LaMonica McIver with assault in connection with the May 9th protest at an ICE detention center in Newark. She, along with Newark Mayor Ras Baraka and other members of Congress, stormed into the facility as the security gate opened. The gate was opened to allow a bus carrying illegal immigrant detainees through. Law enforcement officers tried to stop protesters from entering at the gate. Republicans said the behavior of elected officials at the facility amounted to obstruction, not oversight. Congressman Jeff Van Drew commented that the facility was filled with illegal immigrant criminals charged with offenses ranging from rape to murder. An illegal immigrant from Ecuador accused in a deadly DUI crash has been arrested by Immigration and Customs Enforcement. German Yangari Inga is facing vehicular homicide charges in Minnesota. This follows a crash in August that killed a mom named Victoria Eileen Harwell and injured her daughter and sister. Authorities say Yangari Inga had a blood alcohol level twice the legal limit. Fox News reports that he was previously arrested by the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office in May, but released without ICE being notified, despite a detainer request. ICE officials say local authorities declined to honor 2 detainers after citing state legal guidance. The agency eventually located and arrested Yangari Inga. Federal officials say he first entered the U.S. in 2016 and was previously placed into removal proceedings. The Justice Department is launching a civil rights investigation into Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson's hiring practices. The probe follows comments the Democratic mayor made at a church over the weekend. Johnson said that all members of his administration are black. Johnson also added that some of his critics say the only topic he speaks about is the hiring of black people. The DOJ says those comments may suggest race-based hiring and could violate federal civil rights laws. In response, Mayor Johnson suggested the Trump administration is trying to intimidate him and his staff. He defended his team, saying his administration reflects both Chicago and the country. Another inmate from last week's New Orleans jail escape has been recaptured now. State police confirmed last night that 19-year-old Corey Boyd became the 5th escaped prisoner to be captured. According to the Times-Picayune, Boyd is accused of killing a person while trying to break into a car last year. He has been charged with second-degree murder and pleaded not guilty. Boyd was found days after escaping through a hole behind a jail toilet. 5 men now are currently still on the run. Officials say serious security failures made the breakout possible. The Louisiana Attorney General's office said a sheriff's office employee was arrested following the jailbreak. Here's NTD's Christina Corona with more.
Sterling Williams, 33, is under arrest after admitting he helped 10 inmates break out of the Orleans Parish Jail. Deputies say the maintenance workers shut off water to a toilet that was blocking a hole in the cell wall, clearing the way for the escape. The group reportedly pried open a faulty cell door, moved the toilet, cut through steel bars behind the sink, and slipped through the gap. Graffiti left behind read "Too easy, LOL," with an arrow pointing to the hole. Officials say the inmates got out while the only guard on duty left to get food. It took hours before jail staff noticed they were missing. Williams said in his arrest affidavit that the escapees threatened to kill him if he didn't help. He also reportedly told police one inmate tried to grab his phone and asked him to bring a book containing Cash App information. Many of the escapees were jailed for violent crimes, including murder. Officials are citing multiple security lapses, including broken locks. Sheriff Susan Hudson, who oversees the jail, says she's taking responsibility.
As your sheriff, I take full accountability for this failure, and it is my responsibility to make sure it is addressed with urgency and transparency.
Williams faces 10 counts of principal to simple escape and malfeasance in office. Authorities suspect that multiple sheriff's office employees may have been involved. 3 have been suspended so far. On Tuesday, the first staff member was formally arrested. Christina Corona, NTD News.
Democratic Representative Jerry Connolly of Virginia has died. He was 75 years old. A statement from his family on Wednesday said he passed away peacefully at his home this morning, surrounded by family. Connolly had announced last month that he would not seek re-election and that he would soon step down from his Democratic leadership position on the House Oversight Committee. Connolly said at the time that his esophageal cancer had returned. He first shared his diagnosis back in November. Now, Connolly had represented Virginia's 11th district since 2009. President Biden's last known screening for prostate cancer came in 2014. According to the statement from his office, that would mean it was when he was still vice president during the Obama administration. The statement specified that Biden had not received a PSA blood test, which can detect signs of prostate cancer. On May 18th, Biden's office announced that he had been diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer. The disease has since spread to the bone, indicating an advanced stage. Prostate cancers are graded for aggressiveness based on what's known as a Gleason score, ranging from 6 to 10. 10 is the most aggressive. Biden's office said his score was 9. The news immediately raised questions about how the cancer was missed for so long. Multiple tornadoes yesterday threatened the southeast as nonstop severe weather that killed 28 people enters its final stretch. Powerful winds sent debris flying after a tornado touched down in West Tennessee yesterday. Video released by the Tennessee Highway Patrol shows debris swirling in the air after strong gusts tore off the roof of a factory in the city of Jackson. The facility was evacuated. Meanwhile, in Alabama, eyewitness footage captured a massive tornado swirling in the city of Athens yesterday. Earlier in the day, the National Weather Service in Huntsville issued a severe thunderstorm warning for northern Alabama. In Kansas, video taken on Monday shows a field in Lindsborg. Heavy rain and strong winds rocked trees during a fierce thunderstorm that knocked out power across a wide area. And meanwhile, aerial shots of Kentucky, Illinois, and Missouri show before and after views of destroyed homes and residential areas after storms. Coming up, the Iranian regime says it will continue enriching uranium even if the U.S. doesn't agree. Iran's comments on requests by the U.S. and the status of nuclear talks between the two countries. We'll be right back.
I'm Ilka. I live with my daughter and with my grandchildren. There's a sense of comfort that comes with eating a good meal. We try to make the most, of what we have. We have rent to pay, and then there are lights and there are gas. And while my daughter and I both work, it still just doesn't seem like there's enough to go around sometimes.
Every day, millions of our neighbors face hunger, including 1 in 5 children, and food costs keep rising. Please call or go online right now to join Feeding America with your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Your monthly support can fill plates with nutritious food for families across the country and in your community, thanks to a nationwide network of food banks and volunteers.
If you were over and playing with us, you were part of our family and you were going to eat. A real cook can take nothing and make something.
No one should ever have to wonder if they will have enough to eat, and our neighbors are working hard to feed their families every day. Call or go online now. Visit helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month. 98% of donations go directly to help millions of people facing hunger from coast to coast and in your own community. Use your credit card and you'll get this exclusive canvas grocery bag as a thank you for joining hands with people across America to help end hunger.
Some of the lessons that I hope that my family will take, it is important to treat people the way that you want to be treated. I have carried on the tradition of loving people through food.
Please call right now or go online to make a monthly gift at helpfeedingamerica.org. Your support helps our neighbors bring food home to their families.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretang Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure, natural energy with Puretang Black Ginseng. Order now at puretang.com.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed.
Thanks for staying with us. A rare moment of unity on Capitol Hill. The Senate has unanimously passed a bipartisan bill to eliminate federal income taxes on tips. This is an issue that's gained traction on both sides of the aisle. Democratic Senator Jackie Rosen of Nevada brought the bill to the floor, championing relief for service workers who rely on tips to make ends meet. But the politics behind the vote are more complex. A similar provision is also in a separate Republican tax bill making its way through the House. The reason for the vote yesterday was Senate Democrats wanted to advance the measure while at the same time opposing the Republican tax bill. The House now has 2 paths forward: pass the Senate version or fold the provision into the larger Republican package. Speaker Mike Johnson will have to make that call. Still, not everyone agrees that this is good news. Some analysts are warning that eliminating tax on tips could unintentionally hurt the very workers that it's meant to help. The Economic Policy Institute says it may undermine pay increases for workers, expand the use of tipped work, and create new avenues for tax avoidance. Lawmakers are in a meeting this morning. They held another round of overnight work on the budget bill. This time it's in the Rules Committee. It's the last stop before it hits the House floor. Meanwhile, Speaker Mike Johnson is still trying to unite his caucus over tax changes. Here's NTD's Melina Weiskup.
On Capitol Hill, a House panel met at 1 a.m. to continue debating the budget bill.
That they will gladly allow the American people to serve as collateral damage to the $5 trillion handout, $5 trillion handout to billionaires in this bill.
Only in the mind of a Democrat could a 22% tax hike prevention be a bill that's characterized as trash. Only in the mind of a Democrat could giving our soldiers, our sons and daughters in uniform, what they need to be ready to protect us, to keep us safe and free, be a scam. Only in the mind of a Democrat would keeping illegal immigrants from receiving taxpayer-funded social services so that we could sustain those programs for American citizens now and into the future could be a scam or trash.
The overnight hearing sparked a battle over whether it's an appropriate time to debate the details of the legislation.
If you guys are so proud of shutting down rural hospitals and hurting our farmers, if you guys really think these are such great, awesome, beautiful things to do, like Trump keeps saying, then why not hold this hearing at 1 p.m. and not 1 a.m.?
That you did indeed convene a hearing at 1:30 a.m. only a short time ago in 2022. It was for an omnibus, in addition to a short-term CR. Once again, those who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones.
It comes as the House Speaker is still working out details in tax and savings to appease both wings of his party. Several Republicans from high-tax states want to raise the cap on state and local tax deductions.
Are we tripling the SALT deduction for families with incomes of less than $400,000? We're increasing the child tax credit. We are increasing the standard deduction.
After meeting with the Speaker last night, lawmakers signaled that a final deal is on the horizon. State and local tax deductions is an issue that Trump urged lawmakers to let go of.
We don't want to benefit Democrat governors, although I would do that if it made it better, but they don't know what they're doing.
Despite Trump's meeting with the House conference yesterday morning, some left convinced that the bill is still on shaky ground.
The president, I don't think, convinced enough people that the bill is adequate the way it is. Look, the president called for eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid, and we have not eliminated waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid in this bill.
Even if it passes the House, it's sure to face changes over in the Senate.
There are dials and tweaks on some of the tax issues that our members will want to talk about.
The Senate is already working towards breaking up the House's bill. The chamber on Tuesday passed a bipartisan bill to end taxation on tips, part of the big budget bill now working its way through the House. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
Speaker Mike Johnson says the House is aiming to vote today on President Trump's policy package. Here's the Speaker speaking to reporters.
I think we'll be ready. We're going to put it on the floor, and I think we'll have the votes. With all the great things in this bill, everyone's going to have a lot to go home and brag about. So they're excited. Everybody's excited to get this thing to the finish line, and there's a lot of energy and a lot of anticipation. So it's a big day for us.
Coming to the floor tomorrow?
We plan to do it tonight, if possible. That's my plan. So stay tuned.
Moving on now, the Iranian regime says it will continue enriching uranium with or without a U.S. agreement. The two nations are currently holding multiple rounds of nuclear talks initiated by President Trump. The U.S. wants Iran to refrain from uranium enrichment, which is a possible pathway to developing nuclear weapons. But Iran claims its nuclear energy program has entirely peaceful purposes. A spokesman now calls the request by the U.S. unreasonable. The regime instead offers to be transparent about its program and build confidence. The spokesman says Iran wants the U.S. to lift sanctions in return for being transparent, but he adds that enrichment will continue either way, with or without a deal. The spokesman also says Iran is still assessing its participation in the next round of nuclear talks with the U.S. A former Ukrainian politician was shot and killed this morning outside the gates of the American school in Madrid. The 51-year-old father was reportedly dropping off his children. Authorities said Andrei Portnov was shot at 9:15 a.m. local time. Witnesses reported that he was shot several times by more than one shooter when he was getting into his car. The gunman then took off running. Portnov is an ex-politician closely tied to former Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych. He served as deputy head of the presidential office from 2010 to 2014. During Yanukovych's presidency, Portnov was widely viewed as a pro-Russia political figure. After fleeing Ukraine in 2014, Portnov reportedly lived in Russia before relocating to Austria. Now, it was not immediately clear when he moved to Spain. Back in 2018, Ukraine's security service opened an investigation against him on suspicion of treason. Ukrainian authorities allege that he was involved in Russia's annexation of the Crimean Peninsula. The criminal case was closed in 2019. And Russia says it's working on a prisoner exchange with the United States. Each side reportedly plans to release 9 people. This comes after a recent phone call between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Last week's call between the two presidents lasted more than 2 hours. The Kremlin now says Trump and Putin talked about the prisoner swap during that conversation. But according to Russia, it's still too early to discuss a potential date for the swap. And also today, the Kremlin says Putin visited Russia's Kursk region for the first time since expelling Ukrainian forces. Putin visited a nuclear power plant, which is still under construction. He also spoke at a meeting with selected volunteers. Putin acknowledged that the situation in the Kursk region remains difficult. He said the area experiences problems which are typical for regions near the front lines. And President Trump has cautioned European leaders that Ukraine is a European issue. And while the EU advances new sanctions targeting Russia, experts say its defense plans remain insufficient to change the situation. NTD's international correspondent David Vives has this report from Paris.
On Monday, President Trump said Ukraine is a European situation and should have remained one. This may serve as another warning to European leaders who are increasingly concerned that the US might not only withdraw from the Ukraine conflict, but also scale back its long-term commitment to NATO. While President Trump spoke about a recent phone call with Russia's president on Tuesday, Europe implemented new sanctions against Russia, targeting a shadow fleet of 350 ships used to illegally transport oil and gas. The measures were finalized 3 months ago and are not directly related to recent events. They add to the 16 sanctions packages imposed on Russia since the war began. Geopolitical expert Alexandre Delval says the impact of these sanctions has been limited.
While it may seem easy to impose secondary sanctions on small countries, it's much more complicated with major powers. There are already around 30,000 sanctions targeting Russia, and will soon reach 35,000. These measures can affect wealthy Russian oligarchs, but the state can bypass them through intermediary countries like India or China to keep selling oil, for example.
In recent months, as President Trump pursued a peace deal, European leaders held several defense summits and diplomatic meetings, but most of those efforts failed to produce concrete results. One example is a joint French-British initiative called the Coalition of the Willing, meant to mobilize European troops as a peacekeeping force in Ukraine. While Germany and the UK agreed to contribute troops, most EU countries showed little willingness to participate.
All this muscle building has led nowhere. The force that Europe wants to send totals no more than 35,000, maybe 40,000 or 50,000 troops. But to truly shift the balance on the ground, we'd need 300,000. On top of that, the weapons sent aren't game changers. We aren't producing enough ammunition. We can't send enough troops. Europe simply can't really change the situation.
France and Germany recently agreed to raise defense spending to 5% of their budgets, meeting the NATO target long pushed by President Trump. However, experts say it will take years before Europe can coordinate effectively and build a solid independent defense force, even in the best-case scenario. But this move may help reassure the Trump administration amid growing fears of a U.S. withdrawal from the Ukraine conflict. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
State lawmakers say Amazon is pushing against efforts to block Chinese-made tech from government offices. In Tennessee and Texas, lawmakers are considering bills that would ban state agencies from buying products linked to Chinese companies. The Washington Examiner recently reported that Amazon, which sells many of those items, is lobbying hard to stop the legislation. But state lawmakers say the tech giant has not offered clear reasons for this opposition. In Tennessee, State Congressman Mark Cochran says Amazon has flooded the process with vague objections and questionable amendments while staying silent on any specifics. Amazon has invested heavily in the state and employs tens of thousands there, giving it significant political clout. But lawmakers say the public deserves answers if Amazon wants to protect Chinese-linked goods in U.S. government offices. Amazon did not respond to the Washington Examiner's request for comment. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang praised President Trump's move to do away with some of the Biden administration's chip export curbs. Speaking in Taiwan yearly Computex conference, he said the Biden rules cost his and other U.S. companies billions of dollars in sales. According to NBC, he said the moves were too restrictive to U.S. chips in China and therefore created the opportunity for Chinese companies to fill in the gaps. Biden had said his restrictions were necessary to keep China from developing its chip technology. NBC reports Huang said, saying NVIDIA controlled 95% of the Chinese market at the beginning of the Biden administration, compared with just 50% today. The Trump administration said it plans to remove some of the Biden restrictions and replace them with his own. Taiwan's foreign minister spoke to the media today on the tense relationship between Beijing and Taipei. The question of whether or not Taiwan is a country came up.
Whether or not Taiwan is a country is not up to Wang Yi nor the People's Republic of China to say. The whole world sees us as a country. We choose our governments democratically. It is our business what our name is.
He was also asked what he would say to Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi should they ever meet. Lin said, given the opportunity, he would definitely try to shake hands with him. He said they are both human and he would first try to connect on that level, and that if Wang did not accept his handshake, that's his own problem. The Chinese Communist regime claims Taiwan as its own territory and has stepped up military and political pressure to assert those claims. But the communist authorities in Beijing have never ruled the island. Mass protests are breaking out in several regions of China this month. They're driven by a number of grievances, and angry Chinese protesters have been seen clashing with police officers.
In northern China's Hebei province, close to Beijing, thousands of villagers began a protest in front of local officials on Sunday. All of them had been forced to relocate after local authorities demolished their homes and took the land to build a state-owned airport. Now, resentment is bubbling over. The villagers took to the streets, voicing their dissatisfaction with the small apartments they were placed in as compensation. The protest has continued for more than a week. Over in southern China's Guangdong province, construction workers packed the office of one residential compound, complaining about overdue paychecks. The protest continued from daytime into the night, with multiple workers even sleeping on the floor in the office. In the aftermath of sky-high trade tariffs between the U.S. and China, exporters are also protesting slowed business conditions. Hundreds of merchants in western China's Xinjiang region gathered over the weekend. That's to demand refunds for the fees they paid to set up booths at a trade fair when the event proved unprofitable. Some of them reported that among 300 merchants, only 3 orders were secured across the entire fair. Police were sent to surround the protesters. A number of other protests also sparked last week. In one case, hundreds of unemployed workers gathered in front of a state building in northern China last Thursday, demanding social benefits they were entitled to, but that had been delayed. Another protest was held by victims of investment fraud. In central China, hundreds of people were seen clashing with police officers on Wednesday. They said their hard-earned savings had been stolen after a company's executives conned them and disappeared with their investment money. Social unrest is rising across the board inside China. It's spurred on by poor economic conditions and suffering under the Chinese regime. We'll keep you updated as the situation develops.
A U.S. Air Force veteran is back on American soil after nearly 7 months of detention in Venezuela. The family of Joseph St. Clair and a U.S. official confirmed his release yesterday. He disappeared last November near the Colombia-Venezuela border. His family said they later learned he was abducted by the Maduro regime after straying too close to Venezuelan territory. St. Clair's release was negotiated by presidential envoy Rick Grinnell. St. Clair's family called it a moment of overwhelming joy and gratitude, thanking President Trump and his team for what they called a sliver of light from a very dark room. St. Clair is one of several Americans recently freed under a wave of high-stakes diplomacy as Washington increases pressure on foreign regimes holding U.S. citizens. Coming up next, Universal Orlando Resort opening the gates to its Universal Epic Universe theme park. Get the first look at 3 of its 5 worlds. Stay with us.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health. See for yourself. Call for an information kit and gift. Both are free with no obligation.
Call 1-800-624-6556 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-624-6556. 1-800-624-6556. Call now.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
I'm excited to announce that we're having a huge sale on overstock and brand new products. For example, MyPillow Percale bed sheets, every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. Our Percale bed sheets are breathable, cool and crisp, and they're perfect for spring and summer. And check out Rev 7, the next generation of energy drinks. It tastes great, and it gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. Best of all, it's actually good for you. And for a limited time, try our 3-pack absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs, or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88. Twin size, full size, queen size, king sizes, all $29.88. Inventory is extremely limited at this price, so order now.
Kids love it. Parents trust it. Obviously. Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Ganjiong Campus courses led by expert educators. This is spectacular. Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more. Wow. All while having fun. Perfect. Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
Welcome back. Epic Universe previewed 3 of its 5 new worlds it created in their new theme park in Florida yesterday. Around 600 members of the media were able to experience Orlando's first new theme park in more than 25 years. Guests entered the park into the first world, Celestial Park, an area with gardens, waterways, and pathways. It serves as the point of entry to the 4 other themed worlds. Super Nintendo World, one of the themed areas, puts guests inside the Super Mario and Donkey Kong games. It comes to Orlando following successful openings in Japan and Hollywood. The new park doubles the size of the Universal Orlando Resort and creates new themed worlds around some of the most successful movies and games in recent years, including Harry Potter, the Super Mario Brothers, and the How to Train Your Dragon films.
So Celestial Park is the core of Epic Universe, and it's the place that connects all of the worlds together. I like to think of it as a place where you kind of get to decompress between your journeys, but there are high levels of thrill that also happen here in Celestial Park, like Stardust Racers behind me.
You know, it's what we've all been waiting for. It sounds super cheesy, but you know, opening a theme park's not an easy task. But when guests come in and they say this looks just like the video game, or I feel like I fell into a Nintendo 64, that's absolutely music to our ears.
Police in a small Colorado town are adding kangaroo wrangling to their job description. Meet Irwin, a pet kangaroo who just will not stay put. Irwin's gotten loose in town twice now. Last fall, Irwin was easy to catch. He hopped right into a bag like a joey into a pouch. But this time around, he's grown too big for that trick. When Irwin escaped again on Monday, worried residents called the cops. Officer Garrison, who grew up on a farm, tracked him down and decided a lasso was not necessary. Instead, he says he calmly pet Irwin and then grabbed him. Irwin rode back to his family in the back seat of the police truck, safe and sound. But next time might be a whole different story. By age 4 or 5, kangaroos can grow taller than most men and weigh 200 pounds. They can also hop faster than a human can run and can deliver a very powerful kick. Victoria, the capital of British Columbia in Canada, marked a major milestone this week with its 125th annual Victoria Day parade. The Victoria Day holiday in Canada commemorates the birthday of Queen Victoria, who reigned during the 19th century and gave her name to the province and its capital city. Here are some of the highlights from that parade.
On May 19th, over 70,000 people lined up on the streets of Victoria to enjoy a colorful mix as the Victoria Day Parade rolled through the capital of British Columbia, marking its 125th anniversary with a vibrant display of community spirit and cultural pride. The parade featured more than 100 entries, including marching bands, cultural showcases, and community groups and floats.
What a fantastic community event. It's awesome. Kids love it. Lots of fun. It brings community together. We just had the Latina Fiesta group. They were awesome. And yeah, it's really fun for the kids to see all the diversity in Victoria. It's great to see the representation from other parts of the city and yeah, various groups of the world.
We try to attend every year. Yeah, we love it. We love supporting all the beautiful floats and the kids that come out and the colorfulness of it.
It's about being proud of your own backgrounds and your culture and then appreciating different cultures. Have a different culture but also coexisting at the same time, and that's really important.
One of the performers was Will Arnold, a local cycling enthusiast who has been riding penny farthings for 46 years.
It's excellent to come down for the 125th anniversary, and our friend Will Arnold, who's doing the Penny Farthington. So he came down to support him, and then to see all the other things has been amazing.
Some audience members appreciated the Falun Dafa group, promoting the values of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance of this ancient Chinese spiritual and meditation discipline.
I like them a lot. I support that ideal a lot. Those are good values to share with everybody. It would obviously influence and help all of us live a better life. Thank you for sharing their heritage and their culture with us.
It's a very beautiful presentation. Loved it. It's really warming and great to see that such ideals.
The parade also included performances from 6 U.S. bands contributing to the international flair of the celebration. NTD News, Victoria, Canada.
Coming up, Eric Trump joins Vietnam's Prime Minister for a groundbreaking ceremony outside Hanoi. A $1.5 billion luxury residential development is now underway. We'll be right back in the next hour. Don't go anywhere.
I hear your rest.
On streets across America, young people are homeless, abused, in danger. Covenant House is helping young people with nowhere else to turn, but the need is overwhelming. Please call or go online now with your gift of $19 a month. You'll help provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night. Homeless young people are afraid and alone. Your monthly donation right now will show them they are loved and safe.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life.
Call or go online now and give just $19 a month.
We'll send you this comforting blanket as a reminder of the difference you're making in a young person's life. Call or go online now to safeplacetosleep.org.
We come from a long line of farmers, and there's a sense of pride with being part of these multi-generational businesses. But there's also a significant amount of pressure. My senior year of high school, my dad made the decision that this world no longer needed him in it. I don't know if he was overwhelmed by the bills and checks that weren't going to be coming in because of the strawberries dying off, but it breaks my heart that my dad made a permanent decision for a temporary issue. Don't feel like you have to go through it alone.
Farmers have to take care of their physical and their mental health, because what's a farm without